Hello, fine denizens of the internet. We meet again. How are you doing today? Are you enjoying your day? I know I am. Every day in which I'm doing Slayer is another good day. So here we are, grinding us some wyverns. And today, I would like to talk about a single sentence, one that I find fairly interesting though. So, recently there's been a lot of cultural shift towards basically being part of some sort of global hegemony, right? So we have this, embrace, love, not hate sort of ordeal. And I just simply don't agree. I think the future is actually the exact opposite. I think it's time, if we're being honest with ourselves and being a realistic society, that we start embracing hate. And so reject tolerance, embrace hate. Now, why would I be saying something like this? It's obviously going against the grain. It's obviously fairly counterculture-ish, right? It's very mean. You shouldn't say rude things to people. But I think going forward, we're entering a time and a period where logic and cohesion is going to break down, if it hasn't already broken down. And when logic and cohesion and your ability to communicate in a way with people that, is civil, let's call it. For instance, I don't know, having, good faith discussions. If you can no longer have good faith discussions with people, then the only real methodology that makes any sense going forward is going to be, returning to the primal sort of ways you would describe or have discussions, which, would be blood, fire, steel, etc. Primordial truths, we could say, or the very most basics of existence, right? People die when they are killed, one could say. And going forward, when communication breaks down and civil society breaks down, those end up being the only things that really matter, right? And so we're entering a time and a period where those are probably the only things that are going to matter, at least for, organizing society in a cohesive and logical way, for existing in a society in a cohesive and logical way. So if, blood, steel, thunder, death, destruction are the only things that are really important going forward, then it's of the utmost importance that we stop embracing, tolerance. It's time to end the entire motif of tolerating anything at all, period. Society has gotten to a point where tolerance, I think, is just an unacceptable failure. And I think going forward, it's time for us to embrace, a more true version of the world and a much less, what's the way of putting this? A much less justice-focused perception of the universe. The universe in and of itself is not just period. Like, you can lament that all you want, but at the end of the day, there is no greater, just force in the universe. Loot it, quick. I don't need Marintil. Arender and Avento. Heck yeah. This is probably not a good idea, but I just wanted to use the crystal bow here. And it turns out it's probably a bad idea. But don't worry, they'll drop lobsters eventually. I hope. Or I'll have aggro in like 10 minutes or whatever, however long it's going to take. Towards the end of this video, probably I will have lost aggression, so I will be able to just do as I please and loot contently. But yeah, going forward, I believe that society and the people involved in society are going to devolve into, only being able to have access to primordial truths. In a world in which primordial truths are the only thing that matter, i.e. blood, steel, there's no more discussions about a lot of these social issues. All of that kind of fades away. And Tucker Carlson said something very interesting recently, that, all of our discussions are fake. And he's not wrong about that. Like, all the motifs of modern society and all of these debates are pretty much pointless. They're, a psalm for fools, in essence. And, that's why I've been navigating towards universal truths, or thinking on a much larger scale than, just the issues of the go in the day in the moment. And when you consider society as a whole, as writ large, as going forward in the universe, it's pretty inevitable that you come to the conclusions that the only things that really are going to matter going forward are going to be how strong everyone is, just period. Like, strength is going to be the only determining factor for a successful society. Once all of these, barriers we've set up, once all of this bull that we exist, all of this, the social constructs that we've built, all of them degrade just like the Marxists want, then strength is going to be the only thing really in the end that matters. And so in a society, in a situation like that, it's time to accept that, no matter what you do, really, it's not going to matter. You're not going to convince people of your correctness or of anything, really. You're not going to convince people going forward, that your viewpoint is somehow enlightened. And in reality, you just need to be in the strongest possible position you can be in and be able to inflict the most amount of violence against someone else. And it's a sad thing to say that's the realistic outcome of the future, but I don't really see any other way going forward. I think that's an inevitable conclusion of where we're heading and what society is. I don't believe in debates anymore. As I stated earlier, I don't believe in much of anything anymore, but besides a few universal truths that I've assessed. I believe in free speech absolutionism. I believe in all violence is bad. And at the end of the day, society is what keeps all violence from, might makes right, is from dominating the discourse and being the only thing we really have to discuss. And as that thin veneer slips off the West, the barbarians are not at the gates. They're inside the walls, and they're actively subverting our institutions at this point in time. That's just the reality of the situation with the West and with people in general. So, given that being the absolute truth of the matter, it only makes sense to be in a situation where you as an individual are in a position to inflict as much violence on the rest of the individuals as humanly possible, just to, keep your own lights on, your own, what you have safe. And it's a sad state of affair that's, the true primordial truth of the situation here, but again, we don't really have much choice as far as, actors in a society. The individual doesn't have much power, and when the people cry out for totalitarian violence, they're going to get it, and the West is going to get its totalitarian violence coming soon. And what shape that violence looks like, who knows, but we can assume that tolerance is the last thing we need to be doing going forward, just as a society and as people in general, especially as thinking men and women. If you're someone that has an IQ above room temperature, at this point you need to be fully enthralled in no longer tolerating anything you don't like, especially from your family or your associates or anyone around you. If you disagree with people going forward, it's not resolving it peacefully. It's not trying to persuade them. It's, who is in a higher position of strength, and if you're not, simply just stop associating with them. It's not going to help you. They're just going to exert their power over you going forward. So it's the same reason I cut every single liberal out of my life, period. It's the same reason I refuse to interact with people that don't share my political views. All of this is coming together, and all of it is the essence, of what a proper and, sort of futuristic society now is going to look like. And while it's regrettable that we're at a situation where that's, all we can really do about it, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and, I don't have total power over the universe. I can only do exactly what I can do, and as such, I need to act in a way in which I can make the best out of a bad situation, and that's what I intend to do going forward, and I hope that's what you intend to do going forward, because tradition and tolerance, it's just over at this point. There is no more tradition that is going to hold. All traditions are gone. We're not going back in time. We're not hitting the safe and effective world anymore we used to be in. And with that knowledge, then we really only have one choice going forward, and that's to give in to our more base instincts and start acting in a way where we're embracing our more base instincts. And that's sad, and I hope eventually, whenever the strongest does come out on top, that we can return to a world in which we can, live without having to resort to violence, but we're not currently living in that world, and it's not going to be that world for probably a very long time going forward. If you just analyze the social situation, sometime probably within the next decade or two, we're going to hit, certainly maybe our version of World War II, or what's going to define this, the next 100 years. And that struggle will be a violent struggle, as every struggle is, and what may come of it will come of it. And there's not really much we can do about any of that, except try to exist in a way in which we preserve ourselves and our ideals. And, my ideals of, abortion being wrong because all violence is wrong, you know, free speech absolutism, that, there should be no consequences for the words you say. There should only be consequences for actions, no consequences without causation. There should, always be some sort of like general guiding philosophy. I think that, continuing to bring more humans into the world is irresponsible at best and downright harmful at, the realistic analysis of it. I also should have brought a herb sack. I might go back and get one because I don't want to leave herbs. I probably will very shortly. And yeah. And so going forward, it's time for you to use whatever means you have to perpetuate your ideas going forward, to stop tolerating anything. It's time to accept that, men are not women, and a lot of the other, like, Marxist lies that we've been telling ourselves, and time to embrace, if we need to, tolerance and then outright repression if it comes down to it. Because in a world where might makes right, which is going forward, we don't really have any other choice as a society but to accept these values or perish. These values will die, and they die. The previous set of values died because we did not defend them with oppression, and that's just it. And so, there is no way we can articulate or argue our way out of this, sadly. There is only using the utmost, base instincts and base ways going forward. Oh no, loot it. Yeah, I looted it. All mine. Saved the charges on the crystal armor. Heck yeah. That's literally the only reason I brought the proselyte, by the way, is just to save potentially a charge or two on the crystal armor. But yeah, going forward, it's time that we accept that we have to reject tolerance and embrace hate. Hate is the most powerful and most basic of human emotions. It's the one that is going to guide us forward. And the next period, I hope, will be defined by hate. And that's sadly what it is. You have a great day, nonetheless. Sorry for dropping some black bells.